Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time watching, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Transform limiting beliefs to create lasting success. As a personal consciousness coach, she helps people awaken to their powers and abilities to first identify, then understand, interact with, and finally transform, safely transform as needed, the limiting behavior of their internal dialogue or thoughts. Let's welcome to the seance, Coach Doris. Welcome, Doris.
Hello. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
So, Doris, what is personal consciousness?
Well, consciousness has so many different meanings. Really, it falls into three major categories. There's medical consciousness. We all know that we first became medically conscious at birth. And there's spiritual consciousness, which is part of some religions. And that is your connection to your source, whatever you call that source. But personal consciousness is our very personal, very private inner world. It's really the journey of the development of the human mind, the mind that now resides within us and manages us. And that's done unconsciously until you become aware of it. And I call that personal consciousness.
Yeah. And there's a point in our lives too. I mean, when we're born into this world, and at that moment that we're aware of ourselves. We're aware of. Is there like a particular moment? I think the timeline differs between everybody. That moment.
Well, this is true. I remember being an infant, and so some people can go further back, at least in flashes.
Mm.
But you really become fully conscious and can remember around age of 3 or 4. So we were conscious earlier, but we can't remember sequences of events. We can remember a moment when our mother held us, or a moment when we were crying. But the memories of actually like the whole Christmas morning usually is age 3 or 4. Yes.
Yeah. And we all see those moments too, like when we have we first put the toddler or the baby in front of a mirror, and
Oh,
they see
yes.
themselves in the mirror for the first time, and you get to see the look on their face of just like, first it's like, it's either like just bewilderment, like, who is that?
I know, it's sort of like that's just an image to them. They can't believe it's actually them. They don't
Yeah.
know, I don't think, the first time that they're looking at they find their feet more fascinating than their face.
Yeah. Yep. Like a dog sees its tail or a cat sees its tail for the first time, and they start like, what is that? What is that?
So consciousness, right, does not it begins in infancy, but when I coach people, earliest memory of something happening, and that's usually age 4 or 5.
Yeah. And there's also times in our lives, even through adulthood, throughout our entire lives, we look at ourselves in the mirror and we see
Yes.
something different. There's times that we just like, who is that? We have that epiphany, like you look in the eyes, it's like looking into the soul, and we recognize something. And that's an interesting point too. It's like, whoa.
This is true. This is true.
So what is the science behind personal consciousness?
Well, every psychologist, the ones that have a PhD, are allowed to write their own dissertation and create their own theories. So there are lots of different theories, but I focus my research on the ones that are the most practical and easy to understand. And so the work of Dr. Hal and Sidra Stone, who spent 35 years really moving around the world to confirm personal consciousness and how it impacts people differently in different cultures.
Mhm.
And they wrote at least 30 books, maybe 35 books about personal consciousness. And I studied, actually, Hal Stone died last year, or really right after COVID started.
Oh, wow.
So he's passed on, but his books, still live. And his daughter is continuing his website. And so his work lives on, and I've learned from his students because he lived in other countries. So I never traveled and met with Hal and Sidra Stone. But their work around personal consciousness is the one that I think is most impactful and easy to understand, because they came up with methodologies that help people really begin to interact with dimensions of their ego. And
Mhm.
they call those dimensions selves. And so I became trained in voice dialogue, and I facilitate the learning of understanding how to interact with, not just talk to, but listen to the
Mhm.
response of the mind. Because
Yeah.
your mind knows more than you consciously knows, because it knows your history. It knows. And so you can dialogue with and get insight. You go, oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember that. So this has lots of meanings.
Yeah. This internal dialogue. I've
Yes.
talked about I had on one of the broadcasts I was with a neurosurgeon,
Yes.
and he had asked a question. I don't think this is like after the show. He mentioned something about he asked me, he's like, "Have you ever listened to yourself?" And at first I'm going, "You mean like talking?" I'm like, "No. Have you ever listened to yourself think that internal dialogue and
Yes.
what it's actually saying to you? What do you listen to and what do you not listen to? How important is that?"
Well, I would say it is extremely important because I have negotiated with my mind. I have gotten new agreements with my mind. And once you actually have that experience, then you have the power to really sort of, you can't change your life, but form how you experience your life.
Mhm.
And so it gives you a lot of freedom and inner peace to really know that when my mind starts doing something that makes me uncomfortable, typically it's your inner critic or something that doesn't want you to do something that it fears you can't do or that you might embarrass yourself. And if you know you can talk to your inner critic, understand why it's doing what it's doing, and negotiate some changes in how it interacts with you, that can change how you experience day after day. And so it can be very powerful. It's subtle. It's not like you can change your life,
Yeah.
but to change how your mind talks to you, that changes how much you can move forward and break free from the things that are stopping you, all those voices that are stopping you.
Yeah. It's almost like there's this polarization going on where we're listening to this dialogue, and on the outside we're kind of going, "Okay." We're having a
Yeah, we typically
conversation.
ignore it. Typically ignore it, or at least
Yeah.
I do. We,
Yeah.
we typically ignore it, and until you recognize that it's stopping you from doing something you're very capable of doing and would love to do. And that's often when you stop and go, well, why can't I move ahead? Why do I keep getting drained and confused and distracted? That's because your mind is trying to stop you from doing what it thinks you might fail at.
Yeah.
Even if you're willing to fail, your mind doesn't want you to. And so when you can dialogue with it, negotiate with it, find out, well, if I do this and I don't do this and I don't spend all my savings, can I move in that direction? And your mind will go, yeah, as long as you're safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Safe.
our mind is designed to protect and serve us.
Mm.
And if you can convince your mind that you're moving in a way that protects and serves you, it will allow you to do things that it would not otherwise allow you to do.
Yeah.
Now
It's
that's
that.
hard to believe. That's hard to believe for most people.
Yeah.
That is
That it serves as a safety override switch.
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the reason why I decided to make my first free challenge about identifying beliefs is because the energy of our beliefs are so powerful. I mean, we know the songs, I Believe I Can Fly,
Yeah.
or any of those other songs, that we know the power of overcoming some of the limiting beliefs, but we don't know how to overcome the limiting beliefs. But first you have to identify the limiting beliefs. And that's what my free 5-day challenge was designed to help people do. Identify it. If you identify it, you can clear it.
Mm.
But if you don't identify it, you just think, I don't know what's holding me back. And so I'm trying to take, the work of the psychologists like Hal and Sidra Stone and make it practical and usable for more people.
Yeah. Putting it in layman's terms and helping
Right.
it for the masses.
And that can create some anxiety. So I'm building into some of my programs some anxiety reducing activities, because bringing up some things from your past will create some anxieties.
Mm.
But I can help them make it temporary.
Yeah. Now we always seem to, we are always our worst or best critic, and I've always talked about this for a long time. Is we sabotage ourselves all the time just by thought,
Yes.
by either ignoring that internal dialogue or maybe listening to the wrong thing. How do we
Yes.
know? How do we know that what we're listening to is kind of like heads or tails? It's taking that gamble. How do we know that one particular thing is that direction we should go?
Well, what I've helped people do in like voice dialogue session is by in dialoguing with that part of your mind that's really telling you not to do things, you can find out why,
Mm.
what it's trying to protect you from. And when you understand why your mind is doing what it's doing, because it can do everything from create pain in your body to distracting you to draining your energy, changing your moods. All kinds of things can go wrong when your mind is trying to protect you.
Yeah.
But by dialoguing with your mind and on a day-to-day basis, you begin to understand why it's doing that. And when you understand why, then you can go, well, how can I negotiate? I won't let that happen. And here's how I'll do it. Because convincing your mind that you're safe allows it to allow you to do what you really are here to do,
Yeah.
capable of doing. But if your mind doesn't think you can do it, it will do everything. I mean, everything to stop you.
Mm.
I mean, everything from it's something you knew. The first time you want to get married, the first time you're having a child, the first time you want to change jobs, your mind is going, you could fail at this. And of course you could, But if you've taken all the steps to prepare to do that, your mind doesn't understand that. Your mind just knows you've never done this before. And dialoguing with it and letting it know, I've got the education, I've got the training, I've got the experience. And if this happens, I'll step back. Or if I can't make enough money, I'll get out of that field, or whatever your mind is really saying, that it's important that you have a plan of protection. It will quiet down. It will quiet down.
Yeah.
Because your mind's energy is as alive as you are. It just doesn't have your body. But it's got enough energy to stop you. Or to quiet down and allow you to do it.
Yeah.
I've changed some of my mind's energy into advisors. When it wasn't a critic, it's now an advisor, where it suggests, here's some things you need to do, Doris. Doris, you don't need to do that. Perhaps you need to find a partner or a podcast or something. It suggests things rather than criticizing, no, you can't do that. It changes really that internal dialogue, which actually changes your life.
Yeah. What seems to be I want to touch a little bit on ego. Where does ego play a part in consciousness?
Well, according to Helen Sidra Stone's work, it's a huge part of consciousness. We all think we have one ego. I mean, that's what we learn every day. But they say that there's multiples, actually untold numbers of dimensions to your ego. And that starts from a very early age. When you're like months old, your ego begins to form dimensions. And every dimension is created to help you become successful. You can't grow up without each of these dimensions helping you feel safe. So that inner child is the first dimension that's there. But that's a very vulnerable dimension of your mind. And you can't get stronger until another dimension that's stronger than the inner child comes in, protects the inner child, and begins to make you stronger and stronger. So depending on what's happening in your life, growing up, each of those dimensions can be very powerful and unfortunately can become embedded. They become embedded because they protect you. And when a dimension of your mind or your ego protects you and you use it until you become an adult, it's permanently there. Even though you may not need it any longer. So only you can go back and identify those dimensions of your ego that you formed as protectors that now are blockers and limiters in your life. But Helen Sidra Stone's work showed that there's really, I think they've came up with at least 100 different dimensions that are like categories. But every client that I've talked to who can determine that category exists within them, they've given that category a different name.
Yeah.
Like for me, or one of the earliest dimensions of our ego, based on Helen Sidra's work, is called the pleaser. I mean, a newborn, all they know what to do is cry and cry and cry. But within months, they recognize that if I can get my parents to laugh, I can actually get more out, protection and support and food and everything that I need. So we developed something called a pleaser dimension of our ego. And that pleaser, for some children, is very important. They're the ones that, they can turn into comedians, but they can become entertainers of the family just by giggling and smiling and laughing and that kind of. So the pleaser is one that all of us start to some degree. I don't know that I was much of a pleaser because my mother told me that I was an accommodator, which is another category of dimensions of our ego that starts at a very young age. She told me that when I woke up, when I was just months old and I could stand up or sit up, I would not wake up my parents.
Hmm.
I would sit there and play and, with, myself or stand up, but I wouldn't wake anybody up until I knew they were awake. And so that ability to accommodate people has become, I can see it in myself even today. I
Yeah.
don't interrupt people who are talking.
Same here.
I stand back. So only, I can go through the whole list that Hal and Sidra found, but only the individual can say, yes, that's a part of me every day. And then there's other parts of us that are called disown. We never use it, but it could be useful to us. And so I help people begin to use those parts of their ego that they don't normally use.
Yeah.
And then there's some parts that we really don't want to use because our upbringing taught us that those were the wrong parts of ourselves. Like some people are more argumentative than others, but a lot of women aren't really grow up becoming more accepting of discourse and not getting involved in it.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes you need to let people know, I'm not agreeing with that. At least that was true for me. I'm not one that wants to be involved in combat, but I need to let people know when I don't agree with what's being said or done. And
Yeah.
that, because that was something that I had disowned, my ability to really disagree.
Hmm. Yeah, because there's been, I mean, I've been hearing this for years and so many different conversations. And, they always talk about the ego as being, the negative side. It's like the acronym. There was even an acronym for it. Maybe you've probably heard of it. The acronym stood for edging God out.
Easing God out or edging God out. Yes, I've
Yeah.
heard that.
What's your take on that? Is that
Well, you can't actually edge God out. I don't believe you can edge God
no,
out.
no way?
But I think the ego really is something that is a very important part of ourselves. We needed to become individual and look out for ourselves.
Hmm.
But when we're only looking out for ourselves, that's when you become the egomaniac or some other term, where I'm only looking out what's good for me rather
Yeah.
than I'm looking out for others as well. So I don't think it's easing God out, but it's really focusing only on my needs.
Mm.
If your ego is bigger than whatever your definition is of normal,
Yeah. Overinflated.
overinflated. That's a good word. That's a good word. That's a good definition.
Now,
But go ahead.
what are some of the signs where some people should be conscientious to where it can be dangerous to where feeding somebody's ego or somebody feeding their own ego to where it's like, okay, hold on, I gotta back away here. It's getting too dangerous.
Well, I don't know that there's a perfect solution, but what I found with my clients is that the more they understand their ego
Hmm.
and the dimensions that are working for them and the ones that are not working for them, they're the first one to tell you, I've become too negative,
Yeah.
or I shouldn't have said that, because they can then recognize that's just a part of me that's doing that. That's not who I am or who I want to be. How about that? That's
Yeah.
not who I want to be. But once they recognize the different dimensions of their ego that are, as Hal and Sidra call it, driving their psychological car,
Hmm.
who's in the driver's seat, then they recognize when they're overreacting or underreacting to something and really leaving other people out of the solution, other people's needs out of the solution. So that's one of my favorite areas to help people really understand is identifying those primary parts of their ego that are actually driving them each day and evaluating, are they really working for me
Yeah.
and for my friends and family and coworkers, everybody.
Yeah, when it
because
starts,
you're the only one that can evaluate it. I mean, other people might tell you you got your ego is inflated, but you're the only one that can actually control it.
yeah, yeah, when you start to see certain things in your life start to disappear, friends are starting to disappear, your
Yeah.
relationships are starting to go on a downward spiral, and hopefully, hopefully that your ego is not in the way that you don't recognize that.
Well, yes, we've seen some people who don't recognize that. Well, I mean,
Hmm.
we all know them. We all know them.
Yeah.
That they think it's you, it's y'all. It's-
Yep.
now, you asked me the other day about the Science of Mind Church,
Mm, yes.
and that is actually my church.
Okay. All right.
I go to one of the Science of Mind centers, and that is that it really focuses on spiritual consciousness. Of course, you know that,
Yeah.
where it teaches you that there really is only one mind, and our mind is part of that one mind. And so, I believe that's true. But there's part of our mind that is very personal to us, that developed out of our own life experiences, and
Mm,
that's a part of the mind that my focus seems to. I think my purpose is to help people manage that part of it. Hopefully, they will learn and decide when to become spiritually conscious.
mm.
But I have found people that have become personally conscious are more likely to become spiritually conscious. Because
Yeah.
once you understand the power of your mind, you know that, oh, I'm not in charge. There's something bigger than me
Mhm.
that's running that's
Yeah.
running our lives.
There's something divine. There's something larger and divine about it. And I've
Yeah.
heard this too. It's like the we are all collectively the experiences of God.
Yes. Yes.
And when you start to look at that at a quantum, I've always been interested in quantum physics and quantum mechanics, but when you
I
start to
can barely spell it, but yes, that's
yeah, right. When I start looking at this at a quantum level and a scientific level, it's mind blowing. It's like, whoa, that's
yeah. I
fascinating.
mean, man did not design human's mind. In fact, we're just beginning to understand the human mind within our lifetime,
Yeah,
and so it's not our doing. We don't have control over it, but we can understand it to a greater degree than most of us understand our mind.
yeah. Some of this neuroscience. I've talked to a couple neuroscientists out there, and they said, yeah, it's a continuous science. We're still learning. We're still
Yes,
learning how this awesome biomechanical, electrical thing works. It's
yes, yes,
nuts. Now,
and
what is
hopefully
your
they don't try
thought?
and change it.
Please, yeah, I hope not. When you hear about, Neuralink, and I mean, I see the original purpose behind Neuralink is to help people that have neurological issues and problems. But like scientists and establishments out there, that want to put their hands on it. They want to turn it into, weaponize it or something like that.
You've got my website
Yes, I got
running
your
running.
website up there, and that begs the question too. Let's segue into share your information with the audience, how they can reach out to you.
Okay, on my website, deepcoachingportal.experientify.io, I indicate all of the services that I offer. Some of them are active, and some of them are inactive because there's so much that can be done, but I'm only one person at this time really helping people with us. So I'm offering courses, free challenges, really that are really learning challenges to help people learn about things like their beliefs, the inner critic, the ones that really people know they have.
Hmm.
And then I'm also going to offer one called Conversations with Your Mind to really teach people how to begin to dialogue with their mind, with the
Yeah.
dimensions of their ego. Because you can start dialoguing once you can begin identifying these dimensions. And so I'm using some of the work of Helen Sidger and Hal's daughter, Tamara Stone, who's a psychotherapist herself, to really help people understand how to begin dialoguing with their mind and learning from their mind
Yeah.
why it's behaving the way it is. Yes.
Huh. What is your thoughts on dreams and how they play a role in our consciousness?
Well, since our mind is operating 24/7, and so our mind it does never stop. So even when you're sleeping and dreaming, that is part of your mind interacting with you. There are some people that are specialists in helping you interpret those dreams. I don't happen to have that expertise, but I'm sure it can be very interesting if you've got a dream that actually concerns you. And some of the therapists that are part of Voice Dialogue International, which was the website that was set up by Helen Sidger Stone, and it lists all of the coaches and therapists that are trained under that. Some of them are dream therapists.
Mm.
So I can help people find dream therapists that have that expertise because a lot of people have dreams that concern them and they want to
Yeah.
interpret them.
Yeah.
I can
Especially,
only
yeah.
I can only guess. Guess.
Yeah. Especially the reoccurring dreams. I
Yes.
keep having this dream or that dream. And it's like, what is it telling me? Like, hey, I just say start writing the stuff down. If you can remember it, write it down. You know?
Yeah, what I would do would be to really dialogue with the dimensions of my mind that I thought might be involved in that dream.
Mm-hmm.
If it's about relationships or whatever, to really find that would be what I'm trained to do. But there's some therapists that are actually dream therapists that can help you interpret that.
Yeah.
But they're only interpreting. There's really no one that can really speak for what your dreams are saying.
True.
But they can,
True.
yes.
Yeah. Not everybody. I mean, there's a lot of people that might have similar dreams. Like, for instance, I had someone on a couple months back or sometime back, Kelly Walden, the dream doctor.
Yes.
And she mentioned she asked me what would I consider, a reoccurring dream and something that's kind of like, wow, what's going on?
Yes.
Was losing your tooth or losing your teeth, something like that. I mean, a lot of people have those types of dreams, but in a different way.
Yes.
But that particular imagery means something different for everybody. Not everybody, it doesn't mean the same thing.
Does it
So
mean loss?
it can mean loss, but it could be a loss of something special, like loss of voice, loss of face,
Okay.
loss of and it could mean that you do have a dental problem. You may need to go see the dentist. And or like you're not speaking right. You're not speaking the way you should be speaking. You know, so it can be arranged differently based on that particular individual in that period of their life. But yeah, and I found that kind of interesting the way she had explained it. But now as far as consciousness,
Yes.
do you feel that what's your thought on consciousness as it either being local, non-local?
I'm not sure what you mean by the word local or non-local.
Maybe maybe I'm getting into the quantum aspect a little bit too
Yeah,
much.
so, man.
Well, there's been a discussion for some time that people are thinking that consciousness is a is a non-locality, that it is actually, it's out there, it's part of the universe. But then there's
Well,
also a thought that consciousness is kept as a local attribute of the self.
I would say anybody that you ask to say, where is your mind? They're going to typically go outside of their body
Yeah.
in their expression of where their mind is. Yet, it is within our body as well. I think the mind body connection really sort of answers that question. It is both within your body and outside of your body.
Yeah. Yeah. The spiritual
So,
consciousness.
yes, there's a local connection. I know for me, one of the things that I often get asked when I go through my course that helps people understand the dimensions of their mind that Helen Sidru named as the selves. People always ask, well, how do you know when God is talking to you versus your mind is talking to you?
Mm.
And unfortunately, my answer is I can't tell you. But one of my teachers collected from their clients all the ways that their clients found that they distinguish between God or source talking to them and them talking to themselves,
Yeah.
and help them really choose for themselves, when do you know God's talking to you? Now for me, and you, I want to hear your story as well. I often get input through my heart. I have thoughts that are in my mind, but
Hmm.
there's some thoughts that I know are coming from the center of my body, from my heart region. And there's sometimes it's like it's not my idea. That
Yeah.
just came to me. I can't even think of that. I didn't know that existed.
Hmm.
So, it's like that wasn't me figuring that out. So, have you ever had a thought you go, where did that come from? That
I would,
that that's not me.
yeah, I feel that is that's an attribute of, and what you just explained, of what spiritual mediumship, or someone who's a
Mm-hmm.
medium. We say as a medium, oh well, we are a conduit with of spirit, kind of like that telephone trying to give a
Mm-hmm.
message to somebody. So what are we actually tapping into? Is that
Mm-hmm.
spirit coming forward, coming closer into our energy, and giving us information, either verbally within our mind?
Mm-hmm.
Are they giving us symbols that we can see in our mind's eye? So we're kind of like having this conversation with the spirit realm or God. So I've had those a lot, especially if
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting down at in a session doing a reading for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that person, never met them before, and as soon as I sit down with them, I don't ask them any questions. I sit down and I start getting information. I pull imagery. I'll get images. And when you say about the heart, I feel stuff. It's like I
Mm-hmm.
feel the impression of a particular instance or thing or event, and I'll try to explain it in words to that person. And as the information starts coming in, I got to deliver it, because if I don't deliver it, I'll forget it. So it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like a part of the mind shuts off, and I deliver the information until it's
But
like,
my teacher that taught me how to clear people's beliefs,
hmm,
he talked about how he learned to do that. It was a download.
yeah,
And you're speaking in terms that sound like a lot of what you do is like downloaded through you.
hmm,
You didn't have this list of questions.
exactly.
It's coming to you through just being there with that person. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yep. It's incredible. It's incredible what our bodies can do.
Yes.
At acting as a conduit for anything. I mean, having
I've
these.
I've actually change what was going on physically in my body with my mind.
Mm.
Now, probably a lot of people have done that, but it's never been measured
Yeah.
by medical. But mine was. I had fluid on my brain, and this was after an aneurysm, right? So I was like, then when the neurosurgeon says, I want to do another brain surgery on it, it was going, oh, hell no. I don't want another brain surgery. Because why just put a little, tube in your brain and drain it? And I was totally against it. And he said, well, I'll give you 30 days. 30 days. When you come back next time, if the fluid is still there, we're going to have to do something.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I was in rehab at that time because I was overcoming the aneurysm, the surgery, some aneurysm. And I had a cognitive therapist, and she said, Doris, I can teach you how to do that. Clear the fluid from your brain. I'm going, what? Can't do that. She says she didn't tell me the term. I now know it was psychoneural immunology is what the new field of medicine, where through visualization.
Yeah.
And she didn't give me the visualization. She gave me how to do it, and I would create my own vision of the fluid leaving my brain. 30 days later, I go back to the neurosurgeon, get another CAT scan or whatever they did.
Yeah.
And he goes, what did you do? Me? I said, why are you saying that? He goes, it's gone. I said, what's gone? He says, all the fluid on your brain is gone.
Wow.
I said, oh, I just imagine myself on the beach, taking off my skull and letting the sun dry up the extra fluid on my brain.
Yeah.
And he said, don't ever do that again without your neurosurgeon. I go, okay. He said, it's gone. I go, I did it. And I don't know how many other people have done that kind of things and didn't recognize that they were the healers. They were the healer of themselves.
Yeah. And
but once you recognize these powers, yes.
Yep. The power of the mind. And, yeah, it's mind over matter.
So I now offer, it's just a one session. It's called Body Wisdom. And it really is using your mind to clear out any unwanted sensations in your body. I can do that in minutes. But as I'm facilitating that, the person is learning how to do it themselves. Yeah. And I've got clients that have gone off and healed them. I mean, they've rinsed their body on hiking trips and all kinds of things, and they've used this methodology called Body Wisdom and healed themselves and finished the hike.
Wow.
So there are some techniques that are very simple, very safe, of how to use your mind to heal your body in some way. So I call that all under the umbrella of personal consciousness.
Yeah. What's your thought on prayer?
Well, certainly I was raised to pray, but I would say now I'm at a point where it's more of a dialogue with God.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I get answers back. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes you ask a question and God goes, "No, I'm not."
Yeah, not today.
you figure it out. Not today. So yes. So prayer, I think, is very important to start that with children, for them to really just start interacting with God. Mm-hmm. As part of it, almost every religion. But over time, as we become adults, we really figure out, what is my way of interacting with God?
Yeah.
Is that through prayer? Is it through asking questions and waiting for answer? Is it really just thinking I know that's something God wants me to do? I can feel it in my heart. it's all of those things works with different people at different times, and sometimes they call it prayer, and sometimes they call it spiritual guidance
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or meditation.
and meditation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Be silent.
So I don't discount any of those ways. Mindfulness, all of those things, meditation. I've done them all, and they can all work
Yeah.
to a degree. But I like to take people even further, really interacting with, understanding your mind, and really negotiating when you need to with your mind to give you the support you need to keep moving forward in your life. Because we all came here to do something,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a number of things. And you probably have your own definition of your purpose, like I do. And once you find that, you're not going to be stopped.
Yeah.
You're not going to be stopped. I mean, you'll change if you need to, or if some disaster happens in your life, but you'll come back to it because it's who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And who you're meant to be. And if people find that, they're less likely to be egotistical and all the other things that really create wars and all kinds of things, to really think, we're all here for a reason.
Yeah. There's a
And
purpose to everything.
there's a purpose to everything.
Mm-hmm. So
Go ahead.
to wrap up the show, we were getting close to the end. There's never an end. It always keeps going. What would you give to our audience today as a takeaway?
Well, I would say that personal consciousness is your superpower. And it becomes your superpower the more you understand why your mind has formed its behaviors and what it's trying to help you accomplish. And if that's not what you're trying to accomplish, perhaps your mind would understand. That was what I wanted to do when I was younger, but now I want to do this. And here are the things I've put in place to make that happen. You can negotiate with your mind, and I need your support to move in that direction. And I will protect myself. I'll be safe. And if I'm failing, I'll step back, negotiate with your mind, and it will support you. If it's doing something to hurt you or block you or make you feel like you're less than you are, join me in the conversations with your mind and learn how to dialogue with yourself. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. The things that make you go, Absolutely.
There's things we don't know.
Yeah.
Let's learn what we can.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been interesting. I hope some people have gotten something out of this, and that more and more people will come to my website and look at opportunities to deepen their understanding of their own mind, because only you can understand it. I can teach you the methodologies, but you're the only ones that can really interact with your own mind.
Exactly.
You got the power.
Yep. And I would definitely entertain the idea to have you back on again sometime.
I want to. I'll get my feet wet with a few more challenges and courses, so I can give you more feedback on what's working and how I've improved things.
Absolutely. Definitely. Looking forward to that. Definitely.
Thank you so much.
You are very, very welcome. Thank you, Doris. And everybody, thank you for joining us tonight with Coach Doris on Conscious Radio Network's The Seance. And until next time, you all have a good evening.